tonight for your usual host, State Representative Steve Hall, who is taking a well-deserved night off tonight. After what, 15 years of hosting the show on Friday nights. Well, it is Friday, May 17th, 2013, and tonight's host is Beth Poore of Knoxville. You're an advocate for those suffering from workplace bullying.
That's correct.
And we'll talk to you, Beth, in just a moment. All right, now, let's get to our guest tonight. But first, let's tell you the numbers on your screen there. If you'd like to participate in the show tonight, it's a half-hour, commercial-free live program, Knox Politics, and we invite you to call in, and the phone number is 215-2288. So we'd like your input, so give us a call. Once again, our guest tonight is Beth Poore of Knoxville, and welcome, Beth.
Thanks for having me, Gary. I appreciate you letting me talk about this on this forum. I know that there are many other people who have experienced workplace bullying.
And you are an advocate for people suffering from workplace bullying.
I am a survivor of it. So
well, tell us about your
advocate.
efforts, and then later,
Okay.
in just a few minutes, we can go into how you were victimized.
Okay.
What is it? This comes as news to a lot of people.
It is a direct, intentional sabotage of your career. It's not a snide remark or a little joke here or there or something that you would think of a grade school bully pushing you and laughing. It is an orchestrated sabotage, like I said, of a good worker's career. Most of the people who are bullied excel at what they do. They are usually the most knowledgeable, most integrity, are very caring, love their job, such as me. I loved what I did.
So tell us what workplace bullying is, first of all. It's verbal abuse?
Yes. It can be anything from verbal to physical, but normally it is verbal abuse. And it can be very damaging emotionally.
And it can be non-verbal. It could be threatening, humiliating, intimidating.
Yes, all of those things.
It interferes with your ability or a person's ability to do their job and prevents work from getting done. So it actually affects the product, whatever the business is trying to produce.
Correct. It not only affects the person being bullied, but the people, the coworkers. Because very often they have challenges having to witness it. They wind up many times with fear.
Now, let's quickly just touch on, you are advocating for these folks suffering from workplace bullying because you went through it.
Yes.
It adversely affected you, your ability to earn an income.
It did.
And now you've survived that, and you are working to help others in that position. And one of the things you're doing is you're pushing for implementation of the workplace bullying bill.
That's
correct. And I understand you've already talked with your state representative in the House, State Representative Roger Kane in the 89th District. And for people who may not know, he represents the Karnes, Hardin Valley, and Solway area. So have you had good feedback from State Rep Kane?
So far, yes. He's interested, and we need to continue to educate people and get the word out exactly what it is. For me, when I found that there were words for what happened to me, it was such a relief, because until then, it doesn't make sense, and you're blaming yourself and trying to figure out what you should have or could have done differently. And when I found the Workplace Bullying Institute and started reading about mobbing, which also happened to me, and things that there were actually names for these things, that's when I started the healing process. So I know personally how important it is. I do moderate our Facebook page, which is Pass the Healthy Workplace Act in Tennessee, and we give information, answer questions, share information, and conversation.
Okay. We'll go into more about what that is, but let's go ahead and take a call. Hello, you're on Knox Politics.
Hi, my name is Vivian Fivecoat. I'm the Tennessee State Coordinator for a Healthy Workplace Bill.
Great. Well, thank you for calling in. We appreciate your participation in this important show tonight.
Absolutely, sir. This is an important social issue that needs to get resolved nationwide, let alone in the state of Tennessee. I understand your special guest is Miss Beth, who's been a victim, and she is also our Tennessee's social media coordinator for Pass the Healthy Workplace Bill.
What would you tell people who may be watching tonight how important it is to contact your state representatives to implement this Healthy Workplace Bill?
It is essential. It is critical for Tennessee. Industries that have bulliers in them cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to the organization. Plus, it is a detriment to the citizens within the state of Tennessee. National statistics from Work Bullion Institute indicate that 35% of workers have experienced bullying firsthand. 15% witness it. Half of all Americans have directly experienced it. Bullying is 4 times more prevalent than illegal harassment. What it does, it's a detriment to the organization, to the industry, to the workplace. It also is a detriment to those of us that have been victims. As Ms. Beth can attest to, it's a detriment to our health. It affects us physically and psychologically.
Why is it prevalent in the workplace? Why do employers and supervisors allow it to happen?
Bulliers bully simply because they can, because nothing has been done about it. You know, you think EEO, equal employment opportunity, comes to mind, that a worker could take that avenue. Or if a workplace is unionized, you would say, well, file a grievance. Well, I am also a union steward, and I have firsthand knowledge of EEO mechanisms, and both of those are more or less a negotiation, a give and take, you know, a slap on the hand here, or a slap on the hand there, but there is no real consequences to bulliers in the workplace. And just like you hear about the teen suicides from teen bullying, this is just as toxic and caustic in the workplace. And they do it simply because they can. What the bill will do, what it does do is it'll precisely define an abusive work environment. It'll hold workers, co-workers, and management to a higher standard for misconduct. But it also requires proof of health harm by licensed health or mental health professionals. Because whenever you're dealing with human beings, sometimes you get those people that have concerns that can't quite be justified. It also protects conscientious employers from vicarious liability risk when they do, in fact, have internal correction and prevention mechanisms in place. Plus, it'll finally give employers the ultimate reason to terminate or sanction offenders. Like I said, most of the times there's no sanctions. You get a slap on the wrist, don't do it again, and they turn right around and find their next victim.
Great information, Vivian. Thank you.
Vivian, what would you say to people who might oppose something like this, saying government's too big already? Why do we need another bill, another law that's going to regulate the workplace? Small business owners have a tough enough time already in trying to be profitable and serve their community.
There is absolutely no cost to further employers. B, the downside to the harm to the employee and the cost in medical expenses for the employee, the cost in employees leaving that employer, those costs are much, much higher. And the way I look at it is, if you do not support passage of a healthy workplace bill, then you must be condoning workplace bullying. And there's no place in American society for bullying.
Well, Vivian, you've really shined a light on this, and thank you for sharing your expertise on this. Now I'd like to go back to Beth, and if you could just concisely tell us what happened to you.
Okay. Thinking back, I didn't understand it as it was happening, but She would take jobs away from me that I'd done for years.
Your boss?
The
Supervisor?
yes,
Manager?
she was the administrator.
Okay.
My immediate manager, we always had a great relationship. And she knew that I was a good worker and loved what I do. And anyway.
You never had complaints about your work in the
gosh,
past?
no.
Okay.
No, never. And
so you weren't a problem employee?
No. I had
Added
never,
value?
I had never, really, I wasn't a complainer or,
Okay.
I was a very happy employee and productive.
Okay.
I do have autoimmune disorders, but I didn't miss work because of them. I was bound and determined that I was going to be very productive, and I felt very fortunate to have the skill set that I had. So anyway, she started taking jobs away from me, and now that I know, I got sicker the more she bullied me. I didn't know that there was a correlation at the time. And the sicker I got, the meaner she got. What
were some of your symptoms, without getting too personal? Just nauseous?
Yes, I was on chemotherapy for a while, and I had to inject it. And a year after all this had happened, I got a recall notice that in that particular lot number, there was glass in it. Oh. So not only was I dealing with my autoimmune disorders, but I was also trying to survive that.
Wow.
And between tests, I had turned in my FMLA paperwork, and between tests, which were precancerous, the findings in the first set of tests, the second set of tests, I was fired in between them. I was terminated. Anyway.
Did you miss work?
When I filed my FMLA paperwork, I didn't want to take 6 weeks off. I just wanted enough time to get better, to go to the doctor maybe one day a week, and or whatever I needed that one day a week, and have these tests done to continue working. My patients had no idea I was sick. They had no idea.
Some people may not, and I admit I don't either. What's FMLA? What is that? Or is that just a
that is to
medical
protect
paperwork?
Your job, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yes, medical paperwork that your doctor signs and telling what you need.
Okay, so you were bullied, and it affected your health. Then you had some complications unrelated to the bullying at work. Then what happened? Did you say you were fired?
Yes.
And over what time period did that take place? Was that a year?
Thinking back on it, it was over a period of maybe a couple years probably that it started by pulling some jobs from me needlessly and yelling at me for little things in front of other people. And then it escalated to then pulling me aside and screeching at me till I was in tears. And, I'm a grandmother, for God's sakes. I'm an adult, a responsible adult.
A young grandmother.
Thank you. that loved her job, and I still love. I just work part-time now, but still love what I do and feel very blessed to do it.
So you got out of that situation without actually taking action on your own, but it turned out to be a blessing.
It turned out to be a blessing because I did survive it. As Vivian said, there are many people who do not survive it, and many people who are unemployable after they have suffered such mental abuse. Normally it isn't physical. Most of the time it is mental abuse. And such things as ill as I was, she would pull me aside and say, "You're not keeping up with the competition with my attire." Well, I couldn't wear the heels I was wearing before. I was too sick. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and my feet hurt. I couldn't do that.
Couldn't wear high heels.
Right.
So how did you find this support group?
By chance, by happenstance. I was Googling and thinking, gosh, I wonder if there's any information about this. And then I was just shocked at all of the sites that came up and all of the information out there, and that there were millions of people who were suffering from the same thing I was. And when I was able to put names to things, she turned my coworkers against me, and it's called mobbing. And she did that, she orchestrated that, and it was very well executed through giving them money that I was used to earning.
Do you think the people at work who participated in that could see or knew of the effect that was having on you?
No, I think people were blindsided because I had never experienced this type of bullying. I had the other type, a little here, a little there, things that you just get over. I had never witnessed in my years of working. I've been in the industry over 20 years now, and I think my coworkers were blindsided as well. I would love for some of them to say I'm sorry. That would be very healing. But I don't think that they've been able to deal with what they went through by joining and teaming up with her. I think their guilt has probably kept them from being. I've actually seen some of them, and they have a hard time even looking at me because I think they're still hurting. The bullies need help. They're coming from a place of pain. You don't do that to people unless something's wrong inside you.
Yeah. I wonder if sometimes people fall into that, and then it's like a snowball rolling downhill.
Absolutely.
It just escalates.
Absolutely.
We'd invite viewers to call in with their feedback, their input. If they'd like to participate in the show. Politics Knox, the phone number is 215-2288. That's 215-2288. And we'd love to have you weigh in on this. Tell me more about your efforts now regarding the healthy workplace bill.
As Vivian said, it's not just here in Tennessee or just in the United States. Some stats I read today, 18.9 million workdays are lost in the UK. That's a lot of money. We're talking a lot of money, and that's due to workplace bullying.
Per year?
Per year.
Wow.
That's a lot. 56% of employers do not have a workplace bullying policy. More and more are setting them up as they're realizing it's a problem. And like she said, there are lives being lost. Now, I did not plan a suicide by any means, but I was so beaten down mentally and physically. All I had to give was my job, and I came home and went to bed. That was my life until, as you said, it was fortunate I was let go. Through all of this, learned about the Workplace Bullying Institute. And that is what they're trying to get the Healthy Workplace Bill passed.
What do you suggest for people in the interim before this bill becomes law, if it does here in our state? What can they do to either lessen the effects that they're feeling by this workplace bullying, or short of quitting their job?
There's so
what
much
could they
advice
do?
out there. You're going to have to take it individually. I was fortunate. I lived modestly. I didn't live paycheck to paycheck. There are people who have committed suicide because they've lost everything when they lose their job. They've lost their house, their cars. They can't send their child to college anymore. I mean, there are huge consequences to this game, this mind game that these people are playing with your income. It's not fair ratio, because when it's a superior doing this to you, it's not an equal.
Right. So some of the advice that you've taken or you could give, of course, viewers who may be experiencing this could do a search on their own, but
it should be well planned and thought out.
Okay, so
your response.
Okay.
It should be.
So don't just lash out?
Absolutely not. What you need to do is kind of see the atmosphere where you're working. Do they support this bully? If they do, chances are pretty good that the owners of the business are supporting bullying. If it's coworker to coworker, that's different. If it's a superior, yes, you need to analyze the situation. For some people, it does work to confront them. For many people, it does not, and it's better to just start looking for another job before you sacrifice your health. Start thinking of your options and gain knowledge. Get a hold of us, Google workplace bullying, get information and knowledge before you try to tackle this and solve this on your own.
Some of the research I did prior to the show turned up what this healthy workplace bill does for workers. It provides an avenue for legal
Very important.
redress of the health harm and cruelty at work. It allows an employee to sue the bully as an individual without going after the company itself. It does hold the employer accountable. It seeks restoration of lost wages and benefits, which you said could be devastating.
Can be for some people.
And
very.
it also compels employers to prevent and correct future instances. Now, you say this is widespread. You gave the example of 18.9 million people bullied in the United Kingdom. Here, I know Canada, United States, both have statistics that show it is widespread. But
it is.
I think some people may be hearing this and say, I just quit your job, find a new one. But sometimes your job might be so specialized that it may not be possible to quit your job and find a similar job within the same community. It would also entail not only quitting your job, but moving.
Absolutely. I've known of people who have had to, with months of unemployment, many months of unemployment, where they've been devastated, as I spoke earlier, lost their homes, and then had to move away from loved ones just to be able to have an income. So, yes, it can be devastating in many ways, and it's senseless. There's no reason, and normally it's productive, good employees who are full of integrity, enjoy their work, and for some reason the bully wants to take that joy away and does orchestrate the sabotage of a career needlessly.
What are some of the top areas, I guess, what are some of the employment places that experience this? Where are you most likely to run into this?
Unfortunately, Gary, it is within the school system itself. That's number one. Teacher to teacher, superintendents.
Wow.
I know. And that's why it makes sense that bullying with students is so prevalent. So not only do we need to correct the bullying in the workplace, but we need to correct it in the school system. And we need to start with civility at a very young age, preschool, and not stop. It needs to go from preschool to grade school, through high school, through the job market. And it should hopefully be through OSHA, where they just include that in their training and continue it in college, where people are kinder and think before they act, where bullying is not tolerated.
I think you also mentioned that we see it in the healthcare industry as well.
That's number two, and that's where I came from. Yes,
Wow.
The healthcare industry is number two, and we do need, if you even think about the nurse who is helping you or is helping in surgery has just been yelled at for something, a minor infraction, she's not going to give her best work. Whoever is being bullied, whatever the job is, you're not going to get their best work. When I would go in and have to clear my mind and having been crying, my patient could tell and they'd be like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, and you blow it off and you do your best to then focus on your job because that's what you do. Right. But it does make the quality of work not quite as good as you would like to give.
And as our caller, expert on this, said earlier, Vivian said that it also exacts a price on the company owner because
Absolutely.
Employees aren't as productive.
And that trickles down then to if you're mentally broken down, and it can be physical too, and you're unemployable, well, that costs the taxpayers. So it trickles down. If people aren't able to work and they're disabled, it costs all the way around.
Beth Poor is our guest. Beth is from Knoxville and is heavily involved,
Yes,
I should say, as an advocate for people suffering from workplace bullying. She not only is an advocate, but a former victim.
And I like to say survivor.
Survivor.
Yes,
okay.
because I don't feel victimized at this point. Yeah.
Well, good. I'll think of it in those terms as well.
Thank you.
So if there are other folks watching or know of other people who may have experienced this type of abuse, you would point them in what direction? Let's say again.
I would. They're certainly welcome to come to our Facebook page if you're here in Knoxville in Tennessee, which is passed the Healthy Workplace Act in Tennessee, and the Workplace Bully Institute. Like I say, we share information, post information, and then we give little sayings to kind of help your confidence or to help your attitude that day, or things that might give you hope that you can get out of this situation alive and with your health.
And of course, some folks have sought professional help as well.
That's excellent idea too, because sometimes it takes that. You can wind up with a post-traumatic stress disorder or syndrome where you have nightmares. I still do, and it's been 3 years. And I'm much further along in my progress, that's for sure, in putting it behind me. But I never want it to let it get far enough behind me that I don't remember or understand what somebody else is going through.
Right. Okay. A simple search online, healthy workplace bill or workplace bullying, will put you in touch with many, many resources, as well as the one that
I don't even know how many Facebook pages.
Yeah, Beth has already mentioned. It's impressive the number of people who are putting their efforts toward this. It's something that until we talked, I wasn't aware of. So Beth is working towards introducing and passing a healthy workplace act, and has talked with our state representatives, and we'll watch your progress. We want to thank you for being here as we close out tonight's show.
Gary.
Thank you very much. Beth Poor of Knoxville. My name is Gary Lowe, and we'll look for Representative Steve Hall on the next show. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.